Tuesday, the US President Joe Biden announced his re-election bid in a video that showcased his achievements with special emphasis on democracy, freedom and equality. Joe Biden's video was titled, "Let's Finish the Job." Unfortunately for the US president, polls like the one conducted by Reuters and Ipsos are indicating that US voters neither want Joe Biden nor Donald Trump to run for presidency in 2024. Now, according to the three-day opinion poll completed on Monday, the American public is unenthused by the prospect of a rematch between Biden and his predecessor and current leading Republican rival Donald Trump. In fact, the poll says that 44% of registered Democratic respondents don't want Joe Biden to seek a second term, compared to 34% of Republican respondents who said that Trump should not run again for the 2024 elections. Clearly, the poll shows worrisome signs and also raises pertinent questions. Are Americans yearning for a new alternative? Will the 2024 elections witness a third party or a third contender in the political scenario? Let's try and get in a sense of perspective. And for that, I'm joined in by Mattathias, who's a journalist and joining me live from Philadelphia. Many thanks to you, Mattathias. I hope I got your name right over there.
You did. You can just call me Matt, though. That's fine. Thanks.
Okay, you can correct me with the right pronunciation.
So, yeah, where should we start?
Yeah, so I know we are a year away and some major announcements are awaited, but how high is the probability of a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden?
Right now, it's looking very high. There's no one in the GOP who can compete with Trump. It's clear that, people were talking about Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, for a while, but he just doesn't have, he's not a seasoned national candidate yet. And Donald Trump is such a familiar figure. I think people forget his unique talent, if you want to call it that, for connecting with his base and just as an entertainer and performer and a persona. I don't think he's really replaceable in the GOP. So it's looking very likely that, yeah, there will be a rematch between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
So will another Biden versus Trump contest impact voting? Will it impact at all is the question.
Impact voting, like turnout, you mean, or I want to understand?
The turnout. The voter turnout, because you see, if it has to come to a rematch between Biden and Trump, what's the choice?
I'm not sure I understand. I mean, there's a lot of differences between the two candidates.
Right.
On
that
issues that
impact
range
the voter
from
turnout?
economics to taxes to, domestic policies like abortion, things like gun control, which is a huge issue. Donald Trump is very much in favor of protecting Americans' First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, and the right to own really powerful assault weapons. Joe Biden said he wants those assault weapons banned because of the number of children who are killed here in the United States every day. So when you say that there's not a choice, I'm not sure. Maybe I misheard you, but there is such a contrast between these two candidates. I don't see how you could say that isn't a choice.
Right. Mattathias, with a group like No Labels preparing to spend $70 million to create a path for a third-party candidate to enter the race, do you expect any third-party effort to gain much traction in 2024?
I'm not sure about this No Labels movement. I mean, one thing you need in order to run as a third-party candidate in the United States is a lot of money because you need to get on the ballot in all 50 states. You need to have a substantial organization. Kanye West tried to do this in 2020 and fizzled out just because he didn't have the organization he needed. I mean, I don't think it's impossible that you could have someone come along who is a celebrity, who has political ambitions, and who sees a window here to further, their brand and their agenda. So maybe you could have like a Joe Rogan, the podcaster, or a Kim Kardashian. I don't think this No Labels party will attract, serious people from Washington because they aren't going to want to be seen as pariahs by their own parties. And the stakes of the Biden-Trump contest are being framed by both parties as existential. Like, this is the whole future of the country that's on the line. So anyone who goes from Washington, from the sort of political establishment, who goes with this No Labels party is going to be immediately castigated by their own side as a spoiler, as someone who's taking votes away from either Trump or Biden and and making it easier for the other side to win. So I don't think we'll be hearing a lot from this no labels party, but I do think you could see the emergence of a sort of second Donald Trump, a celebrity who's already has really strong name recognition and is just kind of like an idiosyncratic personality who comes out of nowhere. I don't think that's impossible.
It's interesting that you
Particularly
question.
for a younger person.
Right. It's interesting that you question, their plans also, because they are insisting that they've done extensive polling, which indicates a centrist third party candidate would draw votes away from the Republicans and Democrats in equal measure. Do you view that as a real possibility?
I mean, that might be true, but who's the candidate? And often you talk about folks like military folks, like generals. You would need a candidate who is willing to suffer the perception that they either got Joe Biden elected if they're from Republican circles, or that they got Donald Trump elected if they're from Democratic circles. And so you would need to find some dream candidate who has big, wide name recognition and is going to draw equally from both sides. And I just don't think that person exists. I think that whoever decides to go for this is going to be perceived as a spoiler, and I think that is going to be a deterrent that will keep serious people, the people that the No Labels Party would want to run. That deterrent is going to keep the people they would want from actually running, because they do not want their own party to see them as a traitor in an election where the stakes are so high.
Right. So
and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a candidate who really doesn't have a lean to one side or the other.
right. So are you saying that?
Does that make sense? Or?
Right. That's what I want to delve deeper into, because do you think that by nominating a third party candidate, it would be acting as a spoiler that you yourself said? And will that also be tipping the election to one of the major parties by leeching support from the other?
Yeah, that's how it'll be perceived. I mean, I think the two-party system in the United States is very bad for democracy. I think that the barriers to entry for third parties are way, way too high. And I think that people tend to underplay how much the two major parties agree on. Now, that being said, this is like the world that we have here in the United States. And I think you could have an election like you had in 1992, where you really did have a significant third-party candidate force. That was Ross Perot. And then there's people now like the CEO of Starbucks, the former CEO and the founder of Starbucks. His name's Schultz, and he's talked about running for president, but he's not going to run this year because he would leech votes away from Biden and he'd be perceived as electing Donald Trump. So the year for a no labels party to emerge and to really break up the two-party duopoly, it's just not going to be 2024 because the stakes are too high. That's my view.
Right.
You need a year when there's not so much hyperbole about the country, being set on fire, where you don't have the memory of January 6th and the violence after the last election isn't so fresh. This is just not the year for a third party to make itself felt, because the price that any new entrant will have to pay from their own circle is just too high.
Fair enough.
That's my view. I mean, you tell me why I'm wrong, though. I want to hear it.
No, I want to, in fact, deep dive into this aspect, because, I've just been reading extensive reports about the American election system, which is now being questioned in such a scenario when a rematch does seem like a probability, because there's talk about how it's been engineered to produce a two-party system outcome. Is it now becoming a conundrum in situations like this, when there's already voter fatigue towards leading candidates like Trump versus a Biden?
So is the two-party system to blame for this particular rematch? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's what I want to know.
I mean, I think it's impossible to separate the two, because Biden and Trump are both products of the two-party system. I think on the Republican side, you have Trump, this very unusual generational talent in terms of his celebrity recognition, his ability to break the rules and never have to pay a price for it. Apparently, I mean, we'll see in the next few months. and his total outsider domination of the party. He has taken the party over, and he still owns it, and that's what we're seeing in the polls. On the Democratic side, what you have is a very, very shallow bench. It is not at all clear who the successor to Biden is, and that is how you wind up
Absolutely.
with Joe Biden, even at a very advanced age, running for a second term. So obviously, the two-party system's in the mix as well. But I think the reason you have this rematch, it has to do more with the intra-party dynamics of the two parties. The Democrats don't have another answer right now, and the Republicans have not been able to shake Donald Trump's takeover of their base and takeover of their party, despite him having lost the last election by a very significant margin. And frankly, I don't see any reason why he won't lose by even more this time. It is far more difficult to run against a sitting president than it is to run as an incumbent. And it's important to remember that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump last time with Trump as the incumbent. So I would expect more advantages to accrue to Biden this time, given that he can use the White House and Washington as a backdrop for his campaign.
All right, here's hoping that Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence, in fact, prove to be that much needed competition within the Republicans themselves. But I'm going to leave the conversation at that, Mattathias. Thank you so much for joining in here at CNN News 18.
Oh, it's a pleasure.